Yeah, sure. We've had a really good beginning of the school year so far. We've been in skill work in small groups, and it's been really good to see the old guys back mixing with the new guys. And there's a good number of new guys that we brought in via high school, JUCO, and the transfer portal. So it's been really good to see them on the field, working together. We've been intentional about trying to really start to form a team very early on in this school year with different things we've been doing. So it's been a really good start, and anxious to watch them start to do some scrimmaging and playing some baseball games here this weekend. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we're going to start with Dave.
How's it going, Mark? Good to see you again.
Hey, Dave.
It comes around every year. I mean, are there any guys who are hurt, resting, who won't be available for this first fall baseball scrimmage or throughout the fall?
Yeah, there will be some. And again, the list is generally, I don't want to give out every little nick, the guys have. But we're going to be conservative with some guys like Will Sanders and Noah Hall and Jack Mahoney's. It will be brought back slowly, but he will be at some point 100%, and he's looked great so far. But we're going to be conservative with him. Caleb Denny had an elbow procedure. He's a new outfielder from Oral Roberts it's going to be a really good player for us. He had an elbow procedure not too long ago, so he will not play this fall. But he will be good to go by the time the season comes around. And then there's some other guys, nursing some things. Kevin Madden is still recovering from his surgery. And Simpson and Veach and Sino, guys like that. I think I've named everybody. Zach Zadalis is a guy that had Tommy John last year at his junior college that will be, hopefully ready sometime during the season. So just like everybody else and like every year, we're dealing with some things, but for the most part, you'll be able to see a lot of guys running around out there.
Go to Colin.
Mark, hope you're doing well.
Hey, Colin.
Obviously, a bunch of new, especially hitters on the offensive side of things from the portal. What have you seen from that group in the small sample size you've been able to kind of work with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong group. It's guys with a lot of at-bats under their belts. It's guys that are mature. It's a left-right balance. We've seen a lot of power. So it's been an encouraging group so far. I think each of the guys have been what we expected them to be. And when you recruit transfer portal guys, you generally have a higher percentage of knowing what you're getting and being right than the younger guys. It's just the way it is in all sports at all levels, college and pro. So far they've been really good, and I'm anxious to see how they look against pitchers now.
Go to Michael and Anna.
Morning, Mark.
Hey, Mike.
Obviously with this, the South Carolina Clemson rivalry is a lot like, Yankees, Red Sox, here in this state. And it's not often you see, multiple guys transfer from one school to the other. And then obviously, with Monty joining the staff too, I guess from your perspective, how did those things sort of come together, and what sort of impact do you expect, from those guys from Clemson, the players, and from Monty as well on the staff?
Yeah, I expect a good impact, and what roles will be determined and how big an impact will be determined, based on how they play and how other guys are playing around them. But I think they all bring something to the table that will really help us. And, the transition with Monty, joining us has been extremely smooth. We're on the same page in just about everything in terms of how we look at it, how things should be done. And we had a good relationship before this started, and it's only grown since the day he got here. So it's been very, very smooth.
Go to John Little.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, John.
With Monty, how's he adjusted? What are some of his biggest points of emphasis that may be a little bit different from what it's been the last couple of years under the last couple of different assistants?
Yeah, it's probably too early to say what will be different, because I think you need to get into the trenches. You need to get into full team practices. You need to get into games and how you prepare and scouting reports and all those things. But what I will say is Monty, the things him and I have talked about in terms of what we want to do with our hitters is we want to there's different areas that cause improvement to happen in terms of, if you get them stronger, they're getting better. If you improve their mental approach, they're getting better. If you increase their swing mechanics and swing path, they get better. And then if you create situations where they're challenged every day, they're going to get better. So we're making sure that those things are being done every day, and not that they haven't been done in the past, because they have, but just in terms of he's bringing a new creativity, and we're sharing ideas of our long experiences. And so I think the hitters have responded well, and I think offensively we're going to be in a good place. I really do.
Go to Derek Scott.
Coach, how are you?
Hey, how we doing?
Good, good. Hey, you mentioned Jack and his progress. Last year, obviously, he spent his time working out as an infielder. Is his focus entirely on the mound moving forward this year?
Yeah, Derek, he's 100% wanting to be a pitcher. It's his draft year, and I think he decided what's best for him and the team at this point is just to master that craft. And he's been really good. Coach Parker's done a really nice job with his development, and his velocity has been through the roof, and he's more polished. And I think he's got a chance to be a really, really big time guy this year. I don't want to jinx it. I just want him to keep working, but I think he's going to be very confident. And this is a guy that had under a 2 ERA as a freshman, where he was just learning his craft, and he was a two-way guy. I think now that he has focused solely on pitching, and he's had a year off from the surgery to develop every part of his game and get stronger and get more polished and be healthier than ever, I think you're looking at a potential superstar.
Go to Alan Cole next.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. How we doing?
Good, thank you. You mentioned kind of fall camp and kind of what you're looking for. What does go into that process, especially with so many new transfers? What are you kind of trying to hope to get out of these days and these weeks here, especially starting
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And just to give you a little insight into what our first team meeting will be today, we're going to talk about what our goals are. We're going to talk about our expectations, and then just overall some things that we believe in and we want the guys to know. But I'll give you a little glimpse into our goals. I mean, the goals for the fall, and it's any year, but this year especially with having some new guys, is number one is going to be the team building. Build a cohesive together team of guys that trust each other, that have the proper discipline, that learn the type of mental and physical toughness that's required. But team building is number one. Number two, just personal improvement of each player, whether it's a hitter working on hitting the other way, or being tougher with 2 strikes, or working on his power, or the outer half of the plate. The personal improvement for hitters and pitchers. Pitcher may be working on a pitch. He may be trying to improve his mechanics. He may be doing a lot of long toss just for arm strength. So personal improvement of each of the players is number two. And then lastly, what you do in the fall is you evaluate where guys fit in, where are they in their development. Is a freshman ready to play right away? Has an older guy improved? So it's team building, it's personal improvement of the players, and then it's evaluating what you think things will look like as you go into the spring. And things are never determined at the end of the fall. Decisions, we're a long way from making any decisions on anything at this point. But the evaluation process is an important piece of what this fall will be.
Thanks, Mark.
Got it.
We'll go to Dave.
Mark, a question about some of your freshmen. Petrie and Jerzenbeck were 2 of the, highest ranking guys coming in.
Yeah.
What have you seen from them so far? And also Stone Blanton, he said that he might want to try baseball. Will he be able to come around? How's that process going around?
Yeah. I mean, Stone obviously is full-time football right now. He's been over to our baseball facility a couple times, even just to hang out a little bit. But he's full-time football, and I think that's his focus. And we'll see where baseball leads in the future. But right now he's here as a football player. And we'll see what baseball, again, we'll see where that leads in the future, but we're open to that for anybody capable. And I'm sorry, the freshmen. Yeah, the freshmen have come in and done a nice job so far, but we haven't played any games. We haven't done any scrimmages, but they've looked good in the bullpens, and they've looked good in our offensive and defensive workouts. So again, just anxious to see how they look playing against Division I competition now that we start to play games.
Colin.
Mark, obviously the high school classes get filled out 2 or 3 years in advance, and JUCO guys are a little bit different. But from a recruiting standpoint, how different is recruiting out of the portal compared to the pitch compared to maybe a high school kid or a junior college kid?
Yeah, it's a great question, Colin. Recruiting has never been more complicated. It's never been more vast. It's never been, there's never been so many levels to what recruiting is. You're recruiting high school kids in all 4 classes: freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. You're recruiting junior college kids. Then you're saving, the transfer portals there waiting towards as you get closer to the finish line of roster construction. So it's something that every kid is different. I don't think there's a broad brush you paint and say, well, here's how you recruit a transfer portal kid versus how you recruit a young high school kid versus how you recruit a junior college kid. I think the key for any of those is you get to know them, you find out what's important to them, and then you kind of go from there. And sometimes, a kid that's been at the Division I level and he's played and done really well, something's going to be more important to him than maybe a younger kid, because he's 4 or 5 years further down the road and different things are important to him. So I think the relationship of just getting to know who you are recruiting and what's important to them, regardless of where they're coming from, I think that's number one, and you kind of build it from there. So again, there's no one strategy for any of those categories. It's get to know them and then see where it leads you.
Go to Amanda Poole.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Amanda.
With all the changes and everything that's happened over in this off season, how has your mental approach maybe to this season changed based on those off season changes and even just last season's end?
Yeah, I mean, my mental approach every year is to win as many games as we can, to develop our players as best we can. And then from there, everything happens. A lot of that after that comes down to fate, comes down to luck, comes down to how does the ball bounce. But every year I've ever coached, the goal is to develop your players and win as many games as you can. And that hasn't changed. It never will.
Michael and Annette.
Yeah, Mark, you've talked about how important team building is to you this fall and building that cohesion, especially with all the new pieces. I'm just curious, how do you go about building that cohesion?
Yeah.
What are some of your strategies toward doing it? Is it all on the field? Is it off the field type of stuff to you, or just how does that kind of look?
Well, that's a great question, Michael. And I would say the first way we've done that, the very first team function we did is we went over to Fort Jackson. And I would, if Fort Jackson would allow it, I would invite anybody that wants to come participate on this call to come do it with us. We've had a couple sessions there already that our guys have loved. And first time we went over there and we did an obstacle course together, and coaches included, and we were rolling around in the mud and we were climbing walls and doing all kinds of stuff and we really appreciate our friends over there because they've been great and just teaching us, okay, here are some of the qualities and things and the strategies that they have to work on. Because I mean, to do what they do, it involves trust, it involves mental toughness, it involves sacrifice. Those are all the same things you talk about in sports. And so, the first function we did as a team is we went over there, and then we've also been back and we did the victory tower, victory wall. I can't remember exactly what they call it. It's victory. It's one of those. And basically guys are, overcoming some fears of having to jump down a wall with the heights, and the guys are cheering for each other. And it just, that's the first thing we've done. We've also done a number of 6 a.m. workouts where we all have to get out of bed real early in the morning and get here together and, kind of pay that price together, because I think to get to feel like you deserve victory and success, you've got to do some things like that collectively. And so we've done a lot of those things. Now, those are all tangible things, but then as you start to practice now, it's just a constant emphasis of get to know your teammates, build each other's trust, do things together away from the field. So it's some tangible things that you can plan out, like what we just talked about, but then it's just a constant emphasis, I think, among the leaders on the team, among, from the coaches to just, hey, build that trust. And we talked about the USA baseball team in our first team meeting. We went over an article that just talked about how there were all these guys from different walks of life and different points in their career, and they came together for one goal, and that was to win a gold medal for USA in the Olympics. And so we just talked about that because it's a very similar situation here, because we have returning players, we have new high school players, new JUCO players, transfer portal guys. So, building a cohesive team is a big focus, and there's a number of ways to do it.
John Whittle.
I'm asking you this question way too early, and I understand that.
Come on, John.
but but it is you lost a great leadoff hitter last year.
Yeah.
And Brent Belk. Who are some of the candidates who you go into the fall thinking about as, this guy could be a leadoff guy, whether it's just a on-base percentage guy or somebody with the stereotypical traits of what you look for?
Well, John, you're absolutely right. It's just too early to ask that question.
Or you
I could
do
give
have
you some-
scrimmages tomorrow and somebody does have to bat first in each of your lineups.
Well, I guess you'll just have to be there and find out. I've got to keep something a mystery. So maybe I'll text you after the Zoom. I'll give you a little inside info. But no, there's guys we're looking at, but I don't want to single anybody out before we have one at bat in a scrimmage. So I'll have to respectfully decline your question right now, but I will get you that information at some point soon.
Colin.
Mark, it seems like you guys have a lot of versatile infield pieces, whether that's a Wimmer or McGillis or something like that. Just how, number one, what's Braylon's kind of role going to be position wise this year? And kind of what are some of those infielders you might take a look at each position, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, again, practice is all about experimenting, and Wim's going to get a full look at shortstop, and along with Braswell and Tippett is a guy that can move all over the field. Petrie is getting most of his work at third base right now, but also could play in the outfield and could play first base. Obviously, Kevin Madden is a returning third baseman. McGillis is a guy that could play third, second, and first. He's played a little shortstop in his past, but I think on this team, those positions are probably more what you're looking at. And he can also go to the outfield. So, and there's other guys, that are going to be in the running as well. As again, one of my messages to the team today is that no roles have been determined, no positions have been determined, and they won't for a long, long time. So this is a marathon that we're about to take our first step towards our first mile. But there is a lot of position flexibility there, Colin. And so you will see guys bouncing around a little bit, but you'll also see some guys that have done that in the past that maybe focus on just one position right now to see how that works in terms of mastering a single position.
And I guess where are Hicks, Phipps, Beach, some of those Tommy John guys in their rehab right now?
Yeah, you won't see much of them pitching this fall, but we anticipate come season time, which obviously is much more important, that those guys will be able to contribute. Again, Hicks, you mentioned Hicks. I think it should be said, and it's something that we really appreciate, the fact that Braylon Wimmer, James Hicks, and Noah Hall all were taken in the major league draft, all were offered six-figure bonuses and decided they wanted to come back to South Carolina. I think maybe those guys aren't getting enough credit. I don't, maybe the program in terms of, what it means to those guys. I think that's an important point to be made, that, it's really important to our team for this year that they came back, and what that says, I think is pretty important as well. So we appreciate those guys wanting to be here for at least another year. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they have great experience here and what could be their last year, and then hopefully send them off into pro ball in even a much, much better position than they turned down last year.